Right.
Busy?
The engineer, they screamed at the end, and they went away for a year.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome to the Farmington Planning Board meeting. There's a few things I'm going to tell you. First off, if you're going to speak from the audience, I need to turn on this other mic so that it picks it up. Kicker is when I turn it on, it picks up every conversation. If you got a sidebar conversation and you want it recorded forever, just go ahead and keep talking. If not, then maybe you want to think about that. So just be careful. The exits are over here, and the one you came in, there is a generator. Heaven forbid we need one. We'll use that. We are going to hold the meeting tonight in accordance with the rules of procedure that we approved earlier in the year. Okay, I think that's all the major stuff. Most of y'all have been here before, so we'll start with approval of minutes. We have two of them, September 6th and September 20th. We'll start with September 6th. Tim needs to abstain from this one. Everybody got a chance to review those? Anybody have any comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, September 6th is approved with Tim abstaining. September 20th, we have Aaron and Doug abstaining. Did everybody get a chance to review? Comments, questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, they're approved with Aaron and Doug abstaining. Legal notices have been published. Order of business will be in accordance with the agendas over on the table. Please sign in, please. Make sure you sign in. Make sure everybody's signed in so clerk knows who's here when we start to go around and have comments. We have a continued public hearing tonight, DB 0702-23, preliminary 3-lot re-subdivision on behalf of the Fowler Family Trust. So we'll start with, you want to give us a little update on where we're at? I know the last time we left this, we asked you to provide us some information, and so we're here again tonight. I'm going to turn this on so everybody can hear, and everybody else, please talk into the mic so we can record it and the people online can hear. Go ahead, sir.
I believe you have everything that you asked for.
Okay, we do have some information. We'll turn it over to staff. Ron.
Yeah, I didn't prepare a resolution tonight because what I had saw last week wasn't complete, so I'm glad to hear what you have tonight.
Okay, Dan.
I'll concur with Ron on this one. It's up to the board to decide if the submitted information is what you guys will request.
Okay, well, we know that there are a number of things that we asked for that we did not get. We know that there are a number of items in section 144 and section 87 that are not depicted on the map and or discussed, and we never got a request for waiver of those criteria, specifically the location of where the buildings on the lots would be, how the utilities would go into those buildings. And that is all needed and required by code because there is a requirement because of the wetlands and the steep slopes. So I guess you either want to explain why you did not comply with our request for that and or somebody online.
Mr. Camper is online.
Okay, go ahead. Whoever online would like to comment, go ahead. State who you are first.
Okay, Chris Cambar, I'm with APD Engineering and Architecture.
Okay.
We did go through as part of the the letter that we received had a list of items from 144-12 of the code. We did go through that, and we did provide the items in that list.
Okay.
That list does not state that we are to show any proposed buildings on a subdivision plat. We can certainly discuss the areas where buildings would go, but putting them on a subdivision plat does not seem to be a requirement. Existing buildings are supposed to be shown. There are no existing buildings. There are existing utilities, those are shown. There are no proposed utilities. We're not proposing any utilities. We're not proposing any buildings. This is for preliminary subdivision. We did look at the list. We did complete it based on 144-12. I believe we have everything on that list. If there's something specifically missing, we'd like to see that in writing. I have not seen any paperwork for this particular meeting as far as, if there's a write-up with something missing. As far as the location of the buildings, the code does delineate setbacks that are required for every property. And within those setbacks, you are allowed to build a structure. We do show the setbacks on the subdivision plat. And within those within those setback areas, you are allowed to build a building. Now, yes, there are steep slopes. Those are shown as per 144-112. There are floodplains, that is shown. Whether or not you can build a building in there, I don't feel it is warranted as discussion by, we can certainly discuss it. I just don't think it has merit as far as this approval for this subdivision plan goes, because we're not asking to build a building. We are asking to resub this lot from 2 lots to 3. But like I said, the buildings can go in the areas of within the setbacks. That is allowed by code. There are utilities at the front of the property. There's water, gas, electric, telephone, sanitary, and storm sewer to be able to connect into those. As far as driveways are concerned, the driveway could go pretty much as allowed by code anywhere along the front property lines. The middle lot with the narrower portion on the front property line, we would center the driveway on that, in that right of way, or I'm sorry, within the property on that narrow stretch.
Okay, well, again, this is Sharon Heminger here. I looked at the map here and it does not look like the setback that you have put for the middle lot is correct. It doesn't look any way like that is set the same setback as it is for the front 2 lots. So that would be certainly in error. And the concept that I gotta be careful here of how I say this, but it's kind of bizarre to me that an applicant would come into a subdivision of all these nice houses and take and subdivide property to build, I don't know what. It's a subdivision of homes. So the only real thing you can build on these are homes. I don't think you're gonna build an ice cream shop or a welding shop or something like that on these lots. These are home lots, even though they are not buildable based on the subdivision. So it's our requirement that we look at the subdivision for the health and well-being of everyone in the community. So you're talking about throwing something on a steep slope and this and that. And if we subdivide this and then you just go sell these lots off to somebody, we create a burden, the town has created a burden for whoever buys the lots. So I understand your theory. I also know that in the approved minutes based one of these, John. From the, July 19th. Approval, I specifically asked to provide the siting of the houses in relation to the steep slopes. And then Mr. Kuhn made a comment about that he had received a letter from the applicant, which included photos of proposed houses. So I am more than a little confused as a board member. And certainly this is a public hearing, so we'll hear from the residents. But certainly the requirements don't seem to have been met. The drawing doesn't seem to have the correct data on it. And one of the things that I mentioned every time we have talked is that if the applicant and their staff would sit down with town staff and discuss things, the town staff understands what the planning board would need or want to go forward. Granted, I've only been doing this for 26 years, but I think we're pretty transparent in the type of information we request when it comes to this kind of thing. So I appreciate the feedback at this point. I will now turn it over to, it's a public hearing. We'll let the public comment, then we'll go through the board, and then we can let the applicant have some more say. So this is a public hearing, so we'd like the public to make some comments. We're looking for factual information, and that as it relates to this application. And please state your name and your address when you do that. And if you can speak up, I have the mic on, so hopefully you'll get recorded correctly. So who would like to speak first? Don't everybody speak at once. Anybody want to speak?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, tell us who you are and where you live and tell us what you need.
I'm Scott Ranky. I'm 6243 Pheasants Crossing.
Okay,
So I'm right across the street from the proposed
okay,
lots, but I don't quite understand what they're trying to do, because your theory or your thought process of taking one big lot and turning them into three just doesn't make sense aesthetically. Like you said, there's a bunch of houses, there's what, 13, 14 houses on that street that are all good sized homes. And they're very, they've grown in price over the years. They're all nice, beautiful homes. And here we are trying to take one lot, or per se, maybe two lots, and turn them into three. So I don't understand what they're trying to do as far as putting their house across the street from ours and devaluing our house and my neighbors and everybody around us. It doesn't make sense to devalue everything. It almost sounds like they want to build their house, but sell the other two to pay for the one they're building. And to me, that's not right.
okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else have a comment? Just a second, we'll let the applicant in just a second. Let's hear from anybody else. Have any comments? Go ahead, ma'am. Name again and address.
So I'm Maureen Dispenza, 6237. I live next door to Scott.
Okay,
The proposed middle driveway is across from my front door.
okay,
So I won't read all of this because there's things yet to be discovered based on commentary you had along with the gentleman on line here. But what I will say is these lots have been for sale for years. At one lot and it didn't sell. At two lots and it didn't sell. We're trying to understand why going to three lots would make these lots any more sellable. I don't believe they would. When I looked at Redfin and Realtor.com, collectively, the current value of the homes in our neighborhood are somewhere around $471,000. So that's a big consideration when you're trying to take two lots and make it into three. I don't see $3 500,000 homes being built on three little lots. Certainly not in our neighborhood. And it sounds like, sir, you have been through our neighborhood.
many times.
It's a lovely neighborhood. The homes are all well maintained, and you can see why the value is what it is.
Right.
My other question is, if they're not proposing building at this time, they simply want to subdivide, back to your point, for what purpose? And if they're looking to sell them as 3 lots, how are they ever going to sell them when they couldn't sell them as they sit today? Because if anything, to me, as a buyer, it's going to be that much more difficult. Nobody wants the front of a house in their backyard. And you call them flag lots, there's some on County Road 41, they're terrible, just terrible looking. We are grateful for the time and effort, not only you, but the zoning board has put in to try and come to a fair and reasonable decision. And we will probably, as this process goes forward, have more comments. But tonight, it seems as though there's just not enough information to comment further.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder to everyone, we're in a process of gathering enough information for us to consider the application complete so that we can do an environmental assessment. Once we determine it's complete, we can then send it off to county, who would then comment back to us, and then we can do the environmental assessment according to state regulations. When that is done, then it gets to get sent back over to the zoning board where they can do their deliberations on the variance request. And then depending on what happens from there, it would come back to us for the subdivision, just to kind of remind everybody of the process that we're in. Does anyone else have any comments, any of the residents?
Just to add really quick to what I said, like I just got appraised, at over $500,000.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's just an example. I mean, how can you have, I can't see anything going up across the street that is going to retain that same value or something in that sense, you know, out of 3 lots. I mean, it's almost impossible.
Okay.
Because actually the size of the lots, everything, when you look at it, like again, aesthetically, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Not unless somebody knows something that we don't. But.
All right, did you want something, sir?
Yeah, Lou Francisco, 6256 Pheasant Crossing. You use the terminology bizarre, and this is our 5th meeting on this topic. And we seem to be making no headway. I don't know if he's trying to stall us and hope that we're gonna go away. We're not gonna go away. Certainly, the value of the homes in the neighborhood is top priority to us. My assessment went up 175,000 alone. I am trying to protect the neighborhood and enhance the neighborhood, not bring down the value with some kind of conglomeration of assorted lots.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Lynn Chu, 6249 Pleasant Crossing. I think we as a neighborhood have the same concerns. Just in the sense, and from the gentleman on the board explained that we just want to subdivide the 3, but not for buildings. And I'm like, well, what is it for other than building houses? So I don't know if there's smoke and mirrors. I just felt like, you know, we're going through the same process again, trying to figure out what they're doing with these lots. And, you know, if it's not for that, I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, you know, 1 went into 2 to 3, what's next, 4, 5, 6 lots? So that's my main concern. Like everyone here, everybody's houses is on 3/4 or an acre or more. When you break into 3, it's gonna be a lot less. And it's just gonna, I feel like devalue my home, like everybody else.
Anybody else have anything? I know Mr. Fowler has something. Go ahead, Mr. Fowler.
Let me face these people. Can I get, Dan to read something?
I don't know.
Can you read this?
Depending on what it is.
It's yours. You
Okay.
know,
Well, I kind of do, then.
just the yellow.
That's the other. All right, it states,
Wait, what is it?
yeah, I'm gonna It's from the Town of Farmington Planning Board meeting minutes from August 4th, 2021.
21, okay.
All right. It says that Mr. Del Fiore, which would be myself, said the zoning officer, John Wienenborner, issued the following zoning determination on this concept plan. Lot width is defined, states the distance between the side lot lines measured along the front building line of the lot is determined by the prescribed front yard requirements, provided however, that the width between side lot lines at the furthest most points where they intersect with the front line shall not be less than 80% of the required lot width. Except in the case of lots on the pairing cycle of a cul-de-sac where the 80% requirement shall not apply. The that's 25 requirement lot width is 125 feet, plus 80% of that is 100 feet. So the minimum frontage allowed in this district is 100 feet.
Therefore, in 2021, 3 lots were allowed, 100-foot wide. Correct? Yes.
According to that.
Sure, 100-foot wide is acceptable. So in 1998, I'm an investor. I bought this property, knowing that sometime down in the future, Farmington values will probably be quite high. So I set up this property so that I would have a 12-acre parcel. I could either build an estate lot, or at that time, I set it up that I could have 3 100-foot wide lots. And everybody who bought their houses before January of 22 knew that requirement. If they didn't, it's just because they didn't check it. That those lots could be broken into 3 100-foot wide lots. And I did that back in 1998. This isn't recent. I planned on this, that if I wanted to, I could either build a retirement home, or I could build an estate parcel. The only reason why we're in this room, because the town, after we negotiated that I could have the 3 lots, goes in the town's code, and after I gave them the property for the park, and after I built the development, spent thousands of dollars building your development. In January of 2022, they stuck it to me. Because you know why we're here? Because they changed the law. They took the 80% and took it right out of the standard, so that I couldn't apply for that. You want to agree with that?
I do not agree with that comment.
Oh, what's that say?
Well, you're absolutely correct.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hold on.
Yeah.
With the statement that the code has been changed. It has nothing to do with you or your application, sir. The code
Well, I
is,
still have the 80-foot?
no, hold on, let me speak. The code was changed in regards to other items that was happening in this town.
Sir.
Okay.
I understand.
It's not, we're not gonna get into an argument here,
Okay.
okay?
I just-
If you want him to speak, let him speak, okay?
So the town gone through the proper procedure for any code change with the public hearings and through the town board and approved by the state, changed the code with no regards to your pending application because there was none at that time. So when you came forth with this change that you have now, yes, you have to meet the current code.
Right.
Nobody did this because we wanted to stick it, as you said, to Jim Fowler. This was changed in a bigger picture for the whole town, not just for Pheasants Crossing.
So that meeting was as of August.
What meeting are
What are
you?
we arguing about now?
Yeah.
We're arguing about when the code was changed?
I just want to confirm that you people, when you bought your houses, those lots, you bought your place, could have been changed to 300 lots.
Yeah, but they weren't.
That
Good,
could have been.
okay, we're not gonna,
You didn't
okay,
change that.
okay, we're not gonna argue. We're not gonna argue, okay. We'll take your point of what was the history, we're talking about today, okay? We have an application in front of us.
Right.
Let's focus on today's application.
Got it.
Go ahead.
So, because the town, because of other reasons, changed the code, I couldn't apply for the 80% because they took it away. So the only thing that makes sense is to come up with an application with the flag lot. Because we meet our understanding the definition of a flag lot. So that's why we have to design these 3 lots where they are now. Because if we submitted the 80%, it doesn't meet the code.
Right. Okay, that's a given, so you came up with the flag lots.
That's it.
What we're at is trying to do an environmental assessment on those 3
I
lots,
understand.
and you're not providing us the information we requested.
If I can respond to that, I have attorneys who wait a minute,
Okay,
let me finish. I have attorneys who are telling me the information you're asking for are not in the code.
okay,
That's where I'm at.
okay.
So I write checks for $400 or $500 an hour. I think I should listen to them. But if you're gonna come back and keep telling us we have to do something that's not in the code, then we have to reassess.
We are required to do an environmental assessment on property that has wetlands and steep slopes. How can we do an environmental assessment for lots who are going to be buildable eventually?
Right.
Because this is a subdivision, and how can we do an environmental assessment if we don't understand where the buildings are gonna be located? Thus, how it impacts the wetland, how it impacts the steep slopes. I think we're on the same sheet of music, but you don't want to play and provide the information that we want.
I'm not sure we didn't give everything except for the house locations. Because
Well, you don't have the setback correctly on the 3rd lot,
What is it for?
the 3rd, center lot, the flag lot.
Say it's not.
Well, there's not, what's the setback, 50 feet? There's not 50 feet from the front, the lot line that's the longest, or the width there, we're not talking about from the driveway entrance, from there's not 50 feet there.
We're 175 feet back from the road.
Doesn't matter, you still gotta be 50 feet from the front line,
We can change that to 50 feet.
pardon?
We can change that to 50 if that's.
Well, then you get even less property to build
I
on.
gave you 2 documents. One was the geotech study that said that slope was fine to build on. You got that, right?
Okay,
Right?
we got
I
information,
also sent you a DEC report that said I could go back another 30 feet if I wanted to.
okay?
So there's plenty of property.
We
So,
just,
we'll go the next step.
we need information that allows us to do an environmental assessment. We've told you numerous times in the minutes of what we need, what we feel we need to do an environmental assessment. And we also offered, I think very nicely, for your staff to sit down with staff and discuss it to make sure that what you provide us meets what we are looking for. You haven't done it, you haven't sat down with staff, they haven't talked to you about and made sure that everything is correct. You throw it data at us, and then we come back and say, well, it's not quite right, and then you get upset. I'm confused.
So am I, because I can tell you back in 2021, I sent attorneys, I sent engineers to talk to Ron and Stan. And in August of 21, they're telling us we can have 3 lots. And then in January, 2 months later, they said, we'll change. So that's what we got, we're sitting down.
Can I ask him a question?
No, not right now. So,
Anyways, we have done that in the past, correct? We've sent engineers, attorneys, in to sit and talk to you.
that, not related to this application.
Yeah, so it was in relation to
No.
this.
This application was turned in,
It was meeting,
it was conceptual, that was all kinds of different things, but the application itself has just been submitted recently.
Correct.
So that's where we're at, so, All right, do we have any other comments from the public? You can ask me questions, you can't ask him questions.
So I can answer them if you.
Well, no, this is my meeting.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not your meeting, it's my meeting. Go ahead, ask your questions of me and maybe I'll let him answer.
I don't understand why he all of a sudden wants 3 lots, because
That's his right to ask.
yeah,
It's his right to ask for as many lots as he wants.
I don't know the meaning behind it, because if.
He doesn't have to provide that.
The letter that he sent us originally, was kind of oh, you know, we saved this and, we have this, so we can build our retirement home on it, and now all of a sudden it's 3 lots. It's this size, and this size, and I mean, it just sounds to me like he's just out to sell these other 2 lots so he can build his own house, and he really has no care whatsoever for the other 13 houses that are there.
Okay, well, thanks for the
If
comment.
you did, you would want to build something better than what you're doing.
Thanks for the comment.
Can I ask a technical question?
You can ask me a technical question.
Okay, well, I was actually gonna answer.
You can ask me and I can figure out who's gonna answer. How's that? Remember, this is my meeting,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
Let's make sure we keep everything focused.
So you were talking about lot widths and how
Yes.
the law changed and.
Mhm.
So what's confusing to me is when you look at the front, I think it's 300 across. You know, if you look at with the layout of the land, it's sort of like a pie, I think, if I remember correctly, right? It's long in the front and then
Mhm.
kind of gets crazy in the back. But the way it's designed, our frontages, which I think I had somewhere in here, exactly what they were, they averaged 100 and maybe 25 each. When I looked at what was proposed, oh, our existing homes are 141.
Mhm.
What's been proposed in the past is, I think, was it 100 and then 30 because of the long driveway and then another 100. So that would not, if I understand you right, wouldn't meet the code anyway, right?
Can I speak up?
No, you can't, and we can talk to the code guy, it's a code question.
Right, did I get that wrong? Am I missing something?
No, you're not. So what he's showing is 135 and 135 for the 2 lots, and then the middle lot being the 30.
Right,
So. Yeah, when you add all those up, that's the 300 that he's mentioned.
right,
So, yeah, the 2 lots could be 125 apiece, and he would still be short on that middle lot.
okay, so you talked so fast earlier when you were reading the law, I got a little lost, and so I just wanna make sure I understood it correctly. Thank you.
I have a question, Pat Dispenza, I live at 6237 with my lovely wife. When we bought our house, which was about 7 years ago, it was 1 lot across the street from us,
Hey,
right? When was that turned into 2? Is that what it is?
I don't know.
Somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there was an official subdivision
Right.
of it to 2 lots.
It's the 2.
Yeah, and that was officially done.
Requested that?
Well, yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
know when did that happen?
I don't know do you remember the date when you turned into 2 lots?
Probably 2 years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and that was approved, am I correct?
Yeah, well, yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
officially now a 2 lot
Right.
subdivision,
That's what I thought.
right, that's where we're at
Which
right
was a
now.
couple
And
years.
there's
Within
a
a couple of years,
three-
three into 2 lots.
Right. Right,
Okay.
there's been a number of concepts over the years, but 2 lots is where we ended up with a little while ago.
Which makes perfect sense to the neighborhood. The other,
Okay,
there's one
okay,
other statement I wanna make, when you look at the map and you look at the neighborhood, everything below the grade is really meaningless to the neighborhood. You don't see it.
Right.
That's just over just throwing land in to make our lot sizes big enough to cover this little piece that he wants to put a house on, I just wanna make that statement.
well, it is what it is, land is land, and the way we do it. Ms. Crowley, you have any additional comments before I turn it over to the board?
If anybody wants to ask any questions after the meeting, I'd be more than happy to answer anything you wanna know.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, anybody else online like to make any comments? Anyone online like to make any comments on this open public hearing? Okay, so let's turn to the board, Tim.
My understanding is that the last resolution that was approved for this concept had conditions, and those conditions have not all been answered. Which was, one of the conditions was showing placement of buildings, I believe.
Right.
So I'm sitting here thinking that this application is incomplete, and that's where I stand at this point.
Okay. Doug?
I agree with what Tim said. I mean, when I looked at it in the code under 144.16, I know the engineer brought 12, that is part of it as well, but 144.16 deals with land that's special, you know, steep slopes, you know, ones that have flood damage prevention, which is actually the FEMA maps. I mean, which then goes to chapter 87 in our town code, which has even more requirements. So those would be the requirements I would be looking for this to consider subdivision like it states in 144.16 that we need to be looking at these items as part of the subdivision.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Adrian?
I agree with Doug and Jen at this time, and everything else has been said. You're not. We can't be the horse, but there's still stuff missing that we need to know what's going on. Take it at judgment or not, you know, to move forward.
Right. Aaron?
Yeah, it's still along citing with the code, so, you know, we talked about, section 144, so we go 144-12, part 27. We're on the preliminary plan checklist, it states special information on conditions identified by the planning board at plan review. So the special information we requested was the buildings in relation to that. So per code in that section, we are following the code.
Okay. All right, I see Mr. Fowler's got another question. Go ahead, sir.
We had submitted buildings originally because we were asked to for the zoning board. And they told us to take them off. Do you still have those documents?
It should be submitted.
It needs to be submitted to the planning board. If you've already got it, it should be very simple to go ahead and do that and place those back on there and give us what we asked for so that we can move forward. So the answer is, go ahead and do that. Ron?
Yeah, the planning board was very specific. Stating what they wanted documentation on. When they passed the resolution back in August. And they also provided the opportunity to the applicant and his engineer to provide to you in writing reasons why those conditions weren't pertinent. Those statements that we heard earlier tonight did not satisfy that condition. As of this point in time, we have not received any written response to those conditions, which we feel are necessary. Now, the planning board can continue to play this game as long as you want. You also have the right to set a date and time, and if you don't have the information, you can determine the application incomplete and deny it without prejudice.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly trying not to do that. It just means an entire new application after that, if the applicant wants to do that. We're trying to be lenient and provide the applicant time to provide this information. I would highly encourage Mr. Fowler and his team to provide the information we requested in a manner that we requested it, and to make sure that town staff has enough time to review it before the meeting. This is a complex property as it relates to environmental issues. With the floodplains, with the steep slopes, with locating a house on a steep slope. Granted, you can get an engineer to tell you anything you want to hear, that they can build on water, okay? But the bottom line is there are issues here that if we were to approve a subdivision, that then created environmental issues for whoever bought the property, that wouldn't be in the town's best interest, because we would have created a environmental issue for future owners of property. So we're trying to do the due diligence the way we should do it, a way a planning board should do it, the way we've been taught over many years of training to look at the best interest of the community at hand here, and that certainly that center lot is a big concern for this board, for the members of this board, and certainly for staff. So I understand that there's a push that, hey, we're just drawing lines on paper here, you know, it's just a subdivision, just drawing lines on paper. I heard that for 20 some odd years, but there's sometimes when you draw lines on paper, you create issues, you create problems, you create a situation possibly where instead of maybe one variance, you now have to have 3, 5, 10 variances to be able to do what you want to do, and that just isn't proper. So we're in the environmental review phase. We think we need, well, we don't think, we believe we need to know the location of the buildings on these lots. We need to have the proper setbacks set on there. And if you need to ensure that the proper setback is there, you gotta talk to staff. So that's where we're gonna be. So with that, do we have any other final comments by anyone online or in the room before we go forward, Ron?
Yeah, before you go forward, continue. You have to keep in mind that in order to act on something, you have to have posted a draft resolution. Okay,
Right,
we don't have one,
right,
so all you can do is just continue
exactly,
the application to your next meeting,
right.
at which time there'll be a resolution formally prepared to continue it to whenever.
Right. So we, anybody else have any comment? Or we, okay, just a second, Mr. Fowler.
Chris, can you hear me?
Questions for somebody
Yeah,
online?
I hear you.
Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Have you got any questions or any statements or?
No, I'll meet with Dan and Ron, probably early next week, depending on their availability, and we'll sort out the requirements, and we'll get the planning board everything they need, and move forward with the resolution.
Hey, sir, you had another comment?
Yeah, I just hope that Mr. Fowler reconsiders changing what his thought process is just for the whole community for our street, because I think if he was thinking about it very carefully, he would understand that the values of our homes are at large here, and he needs to consider that as opposed to considering maybe.
Well, I appreciate that. That's on the record. So we got that taken care of. Anybody, anything else by anybody? Okay. So our next meeting will be November 1st. Technically, because we have nothing coming up on the 18th of October. So we can continue this to November 1st. But there's no possible way there could be. The time has already passed for that October meeting anyway. So, do I have a motion to continue this public hearing to November 1st? Moved by Adrian, seconded by Doug. Doug, any other comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. It continued to November 1st. Our expectation is that we will have all the data that we need to consider the application complete, which we would then turn in and send it to the county, which I believe meets the end of November. Then it comes back, right? When do they meet in November?
Towards the beginning of November, so it will not hit county until December.
Okay, so it'll hit county in December, and then it would come back to us where we could then do the environmental assessment. Which
Probably.
then when we get done with the environmental assessment, then we can turn it back to the zoning board of appeals. So I assume they'll get it probably January.
So,
I mean, I'm just trying to help with the dates here.
yeah, so looking at the dates, you guys are gonna see it on the first, if everything is submitted.
Yeah.
Then
Goes to county.
we would send it to county, they would get it in December. Would allow it to come back to you guys on the December 20th meeting.
Okay,
And at that point, if it's a referral to ZBA, they would hear it at their January 22nd meeting.
so we're just trying to give you some kind of ideas of these are. It's a process, it's just a process, and right now we're dealing with specifically the environmental record. Actually, I know we've talked about a lot of different things here. But we're dealing with the environmental record, then the ZBA deals with the variance, and then we deal with the actual subdivision and the rest. So I'm trying to help everybody understand that. So we've got a motion, or we had an approval to continue. Go ahead. Dan.
All right, so just one other thing that has to be added to that is all documents would have to be turned in by noon on October 18th to be able to be heard at your November 1st meeting.
So Chris, did you hear that?
Yep, I got it.
Noon, October 18th would be for final submission of all documents, okay? Just so everybody's on the same sheet of music here, okay? With that, we have continued it on,
I just want to clarify one point,
okay,
and that is, not only do you as the lead agency have an obligation to make the determination of significance under secret,
right,
you've also been requested by the zoning board of appeals, provide them with their recommendation on the requested variances.
right.
Okay, so there's two parts to the equation.
So then what we probably need to do is for the November 1st meeting, we need a copy of the variance request so that we can kind of,
It would be after the county.
well, yeah, it's gotta go through a couple different things.
As part of the return from the ZBA on the coordinated review,
Right,
they use the opportunity to request,
right,
which they are entitled to do
yep,
under town law, a specific recommendation from you, the planning board,
yep,
on the matter pending before them.
right,
You
So
would-
we
you would
probably
make
want-
that in December before you send it back.
right. Yeah, we'll need it at some point to just be able to review it.
The zoning
Yeah.
board of appeals is going to need it before
Right.
they can schedule the public hearing.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
And the variance, just remind everybody what the variance request was. Was it for front setback?
Lot width.
Lot width. Okay, just wanted to verify so everybody knew what, it's been so long since we talked about the variance. I want to make sure everybody remembered what the variance was for. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll continue on with the rest of our discussions for the night. And thank you very much for coming in, and we'll move on to the rest of the agenda. Thank you very much. Other board action, hidden treasures, final letter of credit release. Ron?
I received a request yesterday from the town engineer, along with the signed forms by the department heads
Okay,
for the final release of the letter of credit for items listed for the hidden treasures mini
Right.
storage facility up there on
Loomis.
Loomis Road.
yep, which did not include the fence.
We went out, looked at everything. The fence is not up, the fence is not listed on the letter of credit,
Right,
as it's not being dedicated to the town. Therefore, it wouldn't be listed,
right,
and therefore, that has nothing to do with this release. All department heads are satisfied with what's been put in, and the town clerk has verified the dollar amounts. So we're good to go.
okay, Dan, follow up?
Yeah, I'll just, quick comment about the fence. The fence is gonna be handled with the building permit. When we close the permit out, it would be a requirement before we issue a CFC on that building. That all your requirements of the site plan have to be met. So it would include the fence, and that's why it's not part of the letter.
Anybody on the board have any questions? No. I have a motion to approve the final release of letter of credit. Moved by Doug, second by?
Yeah.
Tim, any other comments? Clerk, take a roll call vote, please.
Lucia.
Aye.
Doug Beats.
Aye.
Aaron Sweeney.
Aye.
Pete Bellis.
Aye.
And then
Aye. Okay, we got that one taken care of. Now we have open discussion. Ron?
Yeah, today we received the application for rezoning approximately 65 acres on the east side of State Route 332 and South County Road 41. You may refer to it as the former water park site.
Right.
The applicant is asking for a zoning change from PD, plan development, to incentive zoning.
Okay,
The information will be presented and introduced to the town board at their meeting on the 24th of October.
okay,
The normal process for that is the town board asks this board for a report and recommendation. It will be introduced to you, I believe it's your first meeting in November the 1st. Okay, with a brief presentation. And then based on the discussions, I'll draft as I always do, a report and recommendation for your consideration at your meeting on the 15th. If the town board decides at their meeting on the 22nd, I think it is, of November, to agree to hear and proceed with the formal rezoning, then it sets up county referrals of drafting of a local law, the whole 9 yards. Public hearings, probably sometime in January. We'll go from there, see where it goes.
I believe they changed the concept from dedicated road to private roads internally.
Well, they're both. There's dedicated roads coming in off of 332,
Right.
going out to 41 and going over to Quentinshire.
Right, but the internal roads where they were gonna dedicate some internal roads that where people were gonna back out into a town road.
No, that's been changed.
That's been changed, okay, all right. Anything else, Ron?
No, we have been working on amendments to the town code for wastewater regulations. And we've been working on a draft local law to bring into conformance the changes that have been made in New York State town law. And we'll get into a discussion on those once the draft local made available. Okay.
Okay.
At the present time, the only other thing we're working on is, as you know, there are some surety changes that we're proposing, and those are being reviewed by staff as we speak. So, and I've been keeping Dan and Peter and Lance, everybody busy.
Well, for the board's info, the old water park site is all townhouses, correct?
No. The
Combination?
it's a combination. They're proposing a hotel.
Mhm.
They're proposing commercial sites for commercial purposes, not specifying at this point
Right,
what they are. They're proposing a total of 100 and some townhouse apartment buildings and a climate controlled storage facility up there on County Road 41.
okay, yeah, I knew it was a complex project.
Yeah, it's more than just apartments.
Okay, Dan,
We have our PRC meeting tomorrow. reviewing all the projects going on in town. And as Ron says, he's been keeping me very busy with code updates and projects that seem to never end. Every day there's a new one, so that's where we're at.
Okay. Fire?
Basically, we've been getting a lot of automatic alarms, which are going to be equipment failures and such, along with the all stand-in car crashes.
There you go.
So crashing,
we can do away with those.
oh wait,
Yeah. Anyone else? Mr. Fowler, anything additional?
Nope, just gonna talk to.
Okay. Okay, for my part, I continue to work with staff whenever needed, how many calls a day we end up, depending on what time it is. So, of the month it is, but we talk, regularly, I should say. Make sure that, what we have coming forward, to the board is what we need to have, so. Other than that, anybody on the board have any comments? No meeting next on the 18th, because there's no applications whatsoever. And I can't see us just getting around. I know I love everybody here, but I don't want to just get around and not have anything to do. Anybody else have anything? Motion to adjourned by Tim, seconded by Adrian, all in favor? All right, thank you, guys.